Cleary here with a knife video for you, and I want to make a comment about where I've been sitting. I've been trying to put myself just a little bit off center to give me some room on screen to show you the knife, and it seems to be working. It's a little more comfortable for me as I'm making the video, so if you don't like it and you're wondering why I'm sitting off center, that's why. I've just moved to one side so that I can show the knife without, covering up my face, and I can still, I can get a good close-up, and it's not too uncomfortable for me or awkward as I, cover up my face and eyes and stuff like this. So today I want to show you this knife. It's the Kershaw Cryo II. And this is a knife that, I'll be honest, I didn't know how to feel about it when I first got it. I was talked into buying it. Someone else who had one kind of said, this is a great knife, you really need to get one, and on and on. And so I bought one. And right from the day I got it, I wasn't that crazy about it. Especially at first, I didn't carry it much. But this is a knife that grew on me, and I do like it. And I wanted to do a video of it for a couple of reasons. One, it's a pretty practical, functional knife. So if I claim to be doing videos for people that are just looking for a knife that they could carry all the time, this is a good option. It really is. And the other reason I wanted to show it is because I've done these videos about these charade knives, and these, and they're a similar style, right? These heavy folding knives. They're big and bulky and heavy, but they do have a similar look and feel. Not feel in hand, but a feel in terms of their overall design to the Kershaw. However, the Kershaw is much more realistic as a knife you're going to carry with you all the time. These things are super heavy and super big, and I think every review I've said, probably not a good EDC knife. This would be a good EDC knife, and so if you like this, but want something you could carry with you all the time, this is probably a better way to go. Now, as I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, if you're looking for just that one knife you're going to carry all the time, I have a video called Great Knife for a Great Price, and this one's not in it because it's okay, but it's just not great in any single category. It's a little heavy, it's a little small, it's a little ordinary, and so because of all those things, it's a good knife and you can get it for a good price, but it just isn't a great knife for a great price. So if you're watching this and you're wanting a great knife for a great price, check out that other video, and I have a bunch of knives there that I think are perfect EDC blades that will not break the bank. They're actually very, very reasonable in their price. So let's get into the specifics of this knife. It's 7 3/4 inches, so it's a medium folder, maybe a little bit small, definitely small for my liking. I tend to prefer larger knives. It weighs 5.5 ounces, and 5.5 ounces honestly is a little heavy for this size of blade. In a 3-inch blade, man, there are 3-inch blade knives that are 2 ounces, just a little over 2 ounces. So probably a little heavy for its size, but in saying that, if you take a look at it and you get it in hand, there's literally no way you could cut weight on this knife. What are you gonna do? Make the blade thinner? Make the frame thinner? Like, it would feel cheap and crappy if you did that. So it is what it is. 5.5 ounces is where it lands. There's not much you can do to change that other than to scrap the whole design and start again. So 5.5 ounces, if that's fine for you, and I'll say it doesn't carry that bad. You're not walking around with it in your pocket going, man, why do I have this lump around? It's not that bad in terms of when you're actually carrying it. One of the reasons that it's not bad is the handle thickness is only just a little over 1/4 inch. So that's really nice. It's very, very small in terms of the space it takes up in your pocket, even though, it's not a bad sized knife. The blade is a good blade. It's great for slicer. It's a hollow grind. It comes razor sharp. I have had to sharpen it one time. It's HCR 13 MOV. So moderate good, right? It's going to hold an edge. And here's my experience is that on the days I use this heavily, it needed to be sharpened after a day of hard use. When I just EDC it and use it for opening mail, cutting a couple packages, that kind of stuff, it lasts for a week and a half, 2 weeks, stays sharp for quite a while before you need to touch it up again. If it's just regular, everyday task type of use, which, right, if you're carrying, that's what you're normally going to be using it for. It's a drop point blade. And it is a flipper design. Now I've got a comment on the deployment as we talk about that flipper design. The thumb studs work, but not very well. I mean, you know, and that's going to be probably the case on most flippers, because flipper knives, they often make the detent just a little tighter, so that you have to build up some pressure, and then bam, when the knife releases, it flips out with some authority. That extra detent means that the thumb stud deployment is only so-so. And there's also not a lot of space between the frame and the thumb stud to get your finger in there. So it's a bit of a tough go, but it is possible. So the thumb studs work, but not well. The flipper, of course, works really well. Pops right open. With this one caveat that I have to add. When I first got this knife, the deployment was fantastic. It just flew out and worked really, really well. However, there was some blade play. Now, there's no blade play at all. It's super tight. And that's great. That's what I like. I just can't take even the slightest bit of blade play. That really drives me nuts. But in order to take that blade play out of it, I had to tighten the pivot screw, and the deployment's not as good. You know, it's okay, but let me show you, if I don't flick the wrist at all, and if I don't, you know, really push down with some authority, if I just push down sort of gentle to normal, no, great. Now the knife's going to prove me wrong. Let's try that one more time. But if I just press down gently, it doesn't fully deploy. See how it's not locked up? So there you go. Now it's locked. And that's because that pivot screw had to be tightened. And once I tightened the pivot screw, it just didn't deploy as nicely. Still deploys, still works. It's not as if I'm like, oh, what a piece of junk. It still works. It just doesn't fly out as nicely as it did when it came, when it was a little looser. So that's going to be one complaint. Maybe yours will be perfect, and it might just be an issue in terms of the model. The other thing is, I didn't take it apart, right? I could take this apart, clean up the washers, and put some lubrication, and that may fix it. Then I could probably get it down to a good tightness, no blade play, and still fly out really, really well. So, you know, there's some qualifications there that need to be addressed when you talk about deployment on this blade. It is assisted opening, and what that means is, I'll see how far I can open that. Yeah, right about there, the spring starts to kick in. So if I just move it just a little bit, all right, there you go. So you can see how the spring kicks in. But notice the spring doesn't totally deploy the blade. That's because of that extra tightness. Which means you do have to actuate the blade in order to get it to deploy, and that makes it legal in places that a button knife is not legal. Most of the time, in Canada anyway, the law is if you have to touch the blade in some way to deploy it, then it's legal. And that is certainly the case with this knife. So what else do you need to know? I've given you the size, I've given you the weight. Oh, the pocket clip is a win, okay? Pocket clip is small, it's deep carry, especially if it's tipped down. Now, if you change it to tip up carry, you can see there's the holes, that's where your pocket clip would go. You'd have more of the knife sticking out of your pocket. Not the end of the world, but you just need to know if you're one of these guys that has to have it tip up all the time, then it doesn't carry as deep. You're going to have about this much knife showing. If you have it tipped down, you can see that that's where your pant would end. And so this knife just disappears into your pocket, which is a win as far as I'm concerned. The lanyard hole is also good. You'd easily get 550 cord through there. And this is one of those things that, and there's also a plastic tube, which is a nice touch. One of the things that drives me crazy is when you have, okay, so here's the camillus. See how it's a fairly small hole. Well, this knife doesn't have a lanyard hole at all, but you could easily put a lanyard around that bottom pillar. Lanyard hole is a win on this, and it drives me crazy. I have some more expensive knives that have a lanyard hole that's so small that you could barely get a thread through there, so it's kind of dumb. So my overall impressions on this knife, it's a cool knife, okay? You know, it looks pretty neat. It has that assisted opening, which is a nice feature. It is a Hinderer design. Now, you may love Hinderer designs. I'm not crazy about Rick Hinderer's knives. I don't like the zero tolerance knives designed by him. I don't like the XM18. I just don't like the look and feel of And I mean feel by just the overall impression that the knife gives. And because of that, I'm not that crazy about the overall look of this knife. I would probably be happier if it was a little straighter, if it was designed by someone else. Anyway, I do like it, and I do carry it a lot more than you would think. For a knife that I'm only somewhat happy with, I carry it a lot because it's just, they do a lot of things in terms of ergonomics right. And so when it comes down to, you know, am I going to carry this thing today? No, it weighs a ton. Am I going to carry this thing today? No, it's a little too big. Man, the Kershaw just lands right in that sweet spot. And so I do carry it a lot, even though when I have it in my pocket, I'm not thinking, wow, it's so cool to be able to carry this knife. You know, that's what I like to feel when I'm carrying a blade. This one doesn't have that sense for me. Maybe it does for you. And if it does, you won't be disappointed. It's a good blade, just a little small and a little underwhelming as far as I'm concerned. That's my take on the Kershaw Cryo. Good knife, not a great knife. That's why it didn't make the great knife for a great price. It is a good knife for a good price, solid purchase. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but maybe you'll feel like me and just won't be totally nuts about it. That's my take on the Kershaw Cryo II. Talk to you later.